Good evening. Thank you for joining us on our pre-camp webinar for Top 96 Atlanta before we get to see you on June 29th at Oglethorpe University. Before we dive right in, here's a quick agenda for the evening. After quick introductions, we're going to go over how student athletes and families can best prepare for camp. First from kind of the schedule, operations, logistics of it, and then from the recruiting process and how to leverage these 2 days. We're going to talk a bit about some of the points that make Top 96 a little bit more unique, specifically the data and analytics side of things. And then we're going to try to dedicate as much time as possible to getting all of your guys' questions answered during our live Q&A. First, some quick intros of who you'll be hearing from this evening and who you'll see on site as well. Corey?
Thank you, Max. As Max mentioned, my name is Corey Spera. I, along with Max, help direct our Top 96 baseball camps. I myself am a graduate of Lafayette College, a small Division I school in Pennsylvania where I graduated in 2015. I'm actually an alum of the Top 96 program, went to a camp back in the summer of 2010, which ultimately helped me get recruited to Lafayette College. I also had the pleasure of being the team captain for the back half of my career there.
Awesome. Thank you, Corey. And my name is Max McKenna. I'm our Senior Manager of Product Marketing. And I also, Top 96 alum, a little bit older than Corey. Back in 2006, I came through the Top 96 program, helped me get recruited to Amherst College, where I graduated in 2011. Small liberal arts Division III school up in Massachusetts. Played baseball there for 4 years before going into teaching and coaching. First at Phillips Andover Academy, private school also up in Massachusetts, and then at a small private school outside New York City, where I was a history instructor and head baseball coach there, called the Masters School. Also, each and every summer have taken the time to be working with 18U and 16U travel teams, summer teams, and specifically functioning as somewhat of a recruiting advisor to those teams and the student athletes on them as well. Now we're going to transition over into some how to prepare for camp. Corey, take it away.
Awesome, Max. Thank you very much. So just want to give a brief outline here of some of the scheduling and logistical points that I'm going to cover. Certainly talk a little bit about the camp location and arrival time. Want to go through some specifics with regards to equipment and footwear. And then also make sure that we go over our 2-day camp programming. This will be reiterated to you once you get on site, but want to give everybody a brief preview before we get to Oglethorpe. So day one arrival, of course, the camp is going to be at the beautiful Erman Stadium at Oglethorpe University, right off Peachtree Road there. Camp, of course, is starting on Saturday, June 29th. We're going to begin our check-in registration process at 7 a.m. That's going to run for approximately half an hour. And then we'll begin our camp programming right at 7:30 with an all-camp meeting, players and parents included. I want to give a quick look at an overhead shot here of Oglethorpe's athletic facilities. That big red star just beyond center field, there is going to be plenty of parking for you all out in that area. So when you arrive, turning off of Peachtree Road, you can follow the road into campus just a little bit. You'll of course go along the outside of the outfield wall there, and then once you get to that parking lot on your left, there'll be plenty of spots. There'll be plenty of spots in front of you, and there'll be some spots on the street as well. So we expect no one will have any issues with finding any parking. When you park, we will have folks who are part of our Top 96 team help direct you to check in. But since we're looking at the map here, if you go from that parking lot around center field and around sort of right center and right field as well, that's the direction we would like all of you that cursor's following to sort of file in from. So from the parking lot, beyond center field, right center, right field, and we're going to have our check-in table there, right in that right field corner. Doesn't look like there's space there, but that's that's where we'll be. That's sort of the best spot to funnel everybody into the stands for that morning meeting that I alluded to. That's going to take place at 7:30. Want to give a couple of quick notes on some equipment, and specifically some notes about footwear. You might have noticed in that overhead shot that just beyond that parking lot, beyond the outfield fence of the baseball field, is an auxiliary turf field. That's where Oglethorpe soccer and lacrosse teams play. We are going to be using that field throughout the day. We're going to be using it in the morning for some of our athletic index testing, and we're going to be using it for some other activities throughout the day as well. You cannot wear metal cleats on that field. Oglethorpe's baseball field, Hermann Stadium, is indeed a natural field. We expect that many players will want to wear metal cleats on that, and that is completely fine. But on that turf auxiliary field, there are no metal cleats allowed. We are going to strictly enforce this rule. Oglethorpe has been so kind to us in letting us use their beautiful facilities. We are going to certainly not jeopardize that relationship and not jeopardize the integrity of their facilities either. So again, can't be said enough times, but please bring some turf shoes, some tennis shoes, some molded or rubber cleats. All of those are fine on the turf field, just no metal cleats. Players will be getting a Top 96 Under Armour t-shirt at check-in. So that's going to have their player number on it. It's going to have it on the front and the back. And we ask them to wear that both days of camp. Want to dive in a little bit to our day one schedule here. So in the morning, as I mentioned, 7:30, we're going to kick things off with an all-camp meeting. Once we finish that all-camp meeting, we will have the players leave the main bleachers where we'll be hosting that meeting, send them to that auxiliary field, get them stretched out and ready to go. Parents, you'll stay behind for a brief parents meeting. But the players, we're going to get them ready to go for our athletic index testing. So we're going to be doing several tests before the college coaches ever get on site that will then pass this information over to them. This is going to include the 60-yard dash, the broad jump, the vertical leap, as well as the pro agility shuttle. We'll take care of all of that, and then we will prep the players for our defensive showcase, which is going to be the next main point of our programming. Defensive showcase is going to take place on the baseball field, and it's going to be in front of every college coach in attendance. So each player is going to be able to choose their primary position, and at their primary position, they'll get a chance to showcase. So if you're an outfielder, you get a chance to get some balls in the outfield and throw to home plate and third base. If you're a shortstop, you'll get a chance to get some ground balls to short, make some throws to first in a variety of different plays. During that defensive showcase, we're also going to be taking players overhand throwing velocity. Once we finish that defensive showcase, we'll be moving on to our pitcher's showcase. For the pitcher's showcase, certainly our pitcher-onlys are more than welcome and encouraged to, and hopefully they will participate in it, but also any player who's participating in the defensive showcase may also participate in the pitcher's showcase. We will make sure that you rotate over to the bullpens to ensure that you get plenty of time to warm up for that pitcher's showcase if you're, say, a shortstop who also wants to pitch. We'll make sure that you have ample opportunities to warm up before you head over to our showcase bullpens, where, again, every college coach in attendance will be watching the pitchers who are participating in that pitcher showcase throughout. For those who don't want to participate in the pitcher showcase, while that pitcher showcase is going on, they will be prepping for our offensive showcase. The offensive showcase is also going to take place on the main field, and that's going to happen again in front of every college coach in attendance. Now, if you are that player who is defensively showcasing as a shortstop and you are doing the pitcher showcase, and of course you want to showcase offensively as well, not to worry. Well, that first group of players who did not participate in the pitcher showcase is offensively showcasing. You will have plenty of time to get some swings in and prepare for your own batting practice rounds in front of the college coaches. The neat thing that Max is going to touch on a little bit later that is pretty unique with our pitchers and offensive showcases is that we're going to be using Rapsodo technology in both of those. Rapsodo collects advanced metrics both on the ball out of a pitcher's hand and the ball off of a batter's bat. Gives you some really, really cool pieces of information, some data points such as exit velocity and launch angle, just to name a couple for hitters, and spin rate, velocity, just to name a few for pitchers. Max is going to expand upon that in just a little bit. In the meantime, I would love to move on to the afternoon of our day one. So once we finish all of those showcases and our athletic index testing, we still have plenty of programming for the afternoon of Saturday, the 29th. We'll have a little bit of a break for lunch, and during that break, we're going to offer you an opportunity to listen to a recruiting panel and also have a question and answer. This is going to be led by Max from our team, who's on this webinar with me, as well as some of our camp partners who will be in attendance, who you'll get to meet on site. After that, we're going to launch right into a couple of really cool components of our day one programming. The first one being a positional practice with college coaches. So each player is going to get the opportunity to choose a position that they'd like to practice at. It doesn't have to be their primary position or the position that they registered at, just any position that they'd like to participate in a practice in. And during that practice, the college coaches in attendance will be leading it. So if you're a catcher and you want to practice as a catcher during that position-specific practice, coaches will be on the field with you who teach catching to their college teams. So you will be learning from catching coaches from these universities, which is going to be a pretty neat opportunity for players and coaches alike. And then we're going to finish our day one programming with another really neat component, a college coach meet and greet. And this is going to sort of have two subcomponents. The first one is going to be a small group Q&A and panel with college coaches, where we split the college coaches up into small groups and split the players up into small groups as well, and rotate the players around so that they get to hear from each of those groups of college coaches about different topics, about the recruiting process, about college baseball in general. And then we're going to finish it off with just some individual time for the players and coaches to chat amongst themselves, basically just sort of open it up for about 30 to 45 minutes for everybody to get a chance to connect with whomever they're looking to have a conversation with. And that's going to do it for day one. And now I'd briefly love to go over our day two schedule. Day two is going to be particularly important as well. This is when we're going to be playing our games. So basically, before each game, each player involved in that game is going to have the opportunity to take part in sort of a high-speed situational practice. It's essentially a high-speed glorified in and out. And what sort of makes this a little bit different, in addition to just sort of how we run it in general, is that, of course, the college coaches are going to be there. So it's really another opportunity to defensively showcase in front of each coach that is there, which is pretty exciting. After that's finished, each player is going to have the opportunity to take part in a live game. The games at our camp are only going to be taking place on Oglethorpe's field, so every single college coach in attendance is going to be there. Some of the college coaches there are going to be in the field and in the dugouts as well. So a really unique opportunity for players to connect with coaches there. Every pitcher is going to get a chance to throw live, get off the bump during those games, and all position players are going to have a chance to get several at-bats, as well as playing time at their primary and secondary defensive positions. We balance all of our teams such that there aren't 7 middle infielders on one team and 2 on another. This way we can guarantee equal playing time across all of those games.
Awesome, thank you, Corey. And now, kind of beyond the logistics and the when, the where, and the how, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to approach this 2-day showcase from your recruiting to make sure that you can really make some strides during these 2 days, but also in advance and then in the follow-up from camp as well. And so, as I mentioned, we think about coach communication as crucially important in this process, and using this 2-day showcase as a way to, as a touch point along the way for this coach communication. We separate it into 3 that you see there on the left of your screen. There's before camp, there's at camp, and then there's after camp. Before camp, anytime between now and June 29th is the perfect time for all the student athletes in attendance to research the list of schools that are attending, which we'll take a look at in just a second here, and not only get to know what schools are coming and what coaches are representing those schools, but take a look at those schools. If you don't know anything about Berry College, maybe you can get to learn more. If you've never heard of Birmingham Southern. This happens to be a really good year to get to know about their program because they just were the national runner-up. They were in the College World Series for the Division III level, national runner-up. Learn something about these programs and about these schools to see if they fit the qualities that you're looking for in your own college experience. Then, once you have this research built out, it's a really good time to lay the groundwork and lay some foundation by reaching out to these coaches before camp ever starts with an email. Let them know, hey, Coach Shepard, I'm really interested in Oglethorpe. I really like the way that you guys approach the curriculum and that you have a JV schedule and you focus on development, whatever the case may be. And I'm excited to get on campus for Top 96 and get to meet you and Coach Giordano and get to see campus and X, Y, or Z. I'm really excited to meet you face to face. So use this email, personalize this email to demonstrate your sincere interest in these schools and use it to get onto these coaches' radars before you have the chance to meet them face to face. They might not have a chance to reply to these emails. These coaches' inboxes can be pretty crowded. But if you reach out to them and you send them that email, chances are very good that they will read it, that they will remember your name to some degree once you meet them on site, and it will help them put a face to the name. And it will also, again, help you show interest in these schools that you are really sincerely interested in as you pursue your recruiting. The next phase, and this is a crucial phase and a unique opportunity, is the at-camp engagement with these coaches. Keyword is just on repeat, engage. Engage, engage, engage with college coaches while you have the opportunity to do so. It's not every day, or it's not every tournament or every exposure opportunity that you have the chance to not only play in front of these coaches, but really speak to them face to face, get to introduce yourself, get to learn more about their program, and really get instruction from them and see what it's like to some small degree to play in their program. You get to learn how Coach Giordano coaches at Oglethorpe or how Coach Starbuck coaches at Clemson and see a little microcosm of how their programs run. As Corey mentioned, this does not necessarily mean for shy student athletes or those that are a little bit more intimidated by pieces of this process, in particular coach communication, that you are just left to your own devices, left to fend for yourself and say, hey, they're the coaches, have at it. One of the hallmarks of this Top 96 experience is the camp programming and our staff's support in helping student athletes initiate and pursue these conversations. The camp programming itself, you saw there as Corey went over the two-day schedule, there's dedicated time to get questions answered from coaches. There's dedicated time to meet them one-on-one or in small groups. They're sharing the field with them for the practice to get instruction directly from these coaches. They're sharing the field with them during the gameplay to, again, facilitate this interaction and facilitate the coaching and the instruction and everything else that we believe really can help move your recruiting process forward. So a lot of support and a lot of really organic opportunities for these types of conversations with college coaches to come about while you're on site at Oglethorpe. And we encourage you to take advantage of that. If you have any questions about how to do that or how to start this conversation or how to find a coach that you're looking for, our blue shirt team is also fully equipped and ready to help any student athletes as well. And that's where kind of the Top 96 staff support comes into play to really make sure that players are able to find the right coaches, engage with them, and connect with them in person while they are on site. Now, even if you take care of both these, before camp communication, you send some emails, you talk to coaches at camp and have some great conversations, your job as a student athlete is still not done. This third bullet of following up after camp is absolutely crucial to make the strides and the interactions that you have at camp really make them stick and really help them last and really advance your recruiting process in the days, weeks, and months after you leave Oglethorpe's campus. It is absolutely crucial to follow up with these coaches with an email, with a handwritten note, give them a phone call if you're at that stage in your recruiting process. Follow up proactively with these coaches so that you stay on their radar and so that you are really soliciting the feedback from them about how you might fit into their program or what the next steps for you should look like so that you can really help move your recruiting process forward at the schools that you're targeting. You see here a list of the schools that will be joining us at camp. All of these are excellent schools offering some incredible academic and athletic experiences at the next level. you'll notice a wide variety of academics, of athletics. You see Clemson, you see Birmingham Southern, as I mentioned, just competed in the Division III World Series, national runner-up. You see Lander playing at the Division II level. You see Wofford at the Division I level. What all these schools have in common is that they are all in region to the American Southeast, which can help you guys as student athletes really advance your recruiting process in the region that you are looking at, whether you are coming from Atlanta or elsewhere in Georgia, or you are, parachuting in for this camp because you have a dream of playing baseball and pursuing your education at a school in the Southeast. This camp and this school list is really designed to deliver efficiency in that process for student athletes who are targeting schools in the Southeast across all these different divisions, academic spectrums, different areas of focus, everything. So a huge variety of different experiences here, which is why we do encourage you to, first of all, take a look at this list and do some of your initial research. Take a look at what Berry has to offer. Take a look at what Mercer has to offer. Learn something about these schools from the baseball standpoint, from the social standpoint, from the academic standpoint, certainly. And then also the second thing that I encourage student athletes to do is come in with an open mind. You might come in knowing that Payne and Piedmont are the right fit for you, but guess what? There are parts of those experiences that are going to look very similar to Oglethorpe, and you might fall in love with the Oglethorpe campus or just really like Coach Shep and Coach Giordano while you're on site. Keep an open mind as you come into camp and be ready to take advantage of this experience, not only to advance your recruiting with the schools that you already have on your list, but also discover some others that might not be on your list just yet. So take a look at this list, do your research, and then always keep an open mind as you come into camp as well. Next topic up that we're going to touch on is the data and analytics piece, which, as Corey mentioned, is something that makes this Top 96 camp a little bit more unique and involved for the college coaches and provide some depth to their recruiting. So the first things that I kind of want to touch on are, what are these data analytics? What is their role in college recruiting? How are these coaches using them? And then also talk a little bit more specifically about the platform that we will be using, which is called Rapsodo, so that you're more familiar with that when you arrive on Oglethorpe's campus as well. So first, how do coaches use data and analytics in their recruiting? And you see there, these 4 bullet points are some really important ways in which coaches use this data. A lot of these coaches are using Rapsodo or TrackMan or HitTrax or some sort of data platform in their own program that gives them a baseline that they can compare their recruits to. So that first bullet point, benchmarking against current players. This means that for a lot of these programs, because they've used or have access to some program that provides launch angle and batted ball velocity for hitters and spin rate and depth for pitchers, or some of these types of data points, these coaches can immediately take a look at this Rapsodo data that we deliver them and say, oh, Max McKenna as a high school junior or a rising high school senior or a rising high school sophomore fits the shape of this other pitcher who I already know is having success in my program, which leads them straight into that second bullet point, which is assessing the projectability for high school recruits. They are able to take a look, a more in-depth look, and gain all these different data points about you as a player as a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old, so that they can build a more complete picture of who you are going to be as a 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old in their program, which is ultimately the real purpose of their recruiting. So providing all these different data points, coaches will use this different data in different ways, and they might have different areas that they focus on, but all of it is meant to give a very strong, in-depth assessment that can let them compare you to players that are in their program and project you out and say, not just here's where 15-year-old Max McKenna is right now, but where do I see him in 4 or 5 years as a contributor in my program? And then that last point, you see player development. The other thing is you will walk away with access to this Rapsodo, and there's a lot to be done on the pitching side and on the hitting side to use this data to continue to develop your game. It's not just this, one trick shot that you get while you're at Top 96, and then you have this data and that's it, right? you walk away with this and you know a bit more about yourself as a player. In fact, you know a lot more about yourself as a player, and it can help you design your game to better fit your strengths. It can help you as a pitcher if you know that you're now a high spin rate guy, whatever that means for you. It means that it can help you be more successful at this level and at the level that you're targeting in college by knowing this and how to and knowing how to use this to your advantage and pitch to your particular strengths. In particular, we use Rapsodo, which gives in-depth data and analytics for pitching and hitting to give coaches a really full, in-depth view to your tools, your quote-unquote tools, right? Your hit for power, your hit for average, your arm strength, all this stuff. It gives all these data points so that they can really gain this 360-degree view into you as a player. You see here on the left of your screen, Rapsodo Pitching. This provides obviously velocity, but also spin rate, true spin rate, spin axis, spin efficiency. It models the pitches. You see here on your screen, this is a sample screenshot of what the Rapsodo user interface looks like as we go through that day, and just some of the data that will deliver back to you in your Rapsodo profile as well. Again, all of this gives coaches a really clear and in-depth view into who you are as a player, and also can help you moving forward, knowing about your own release height or release angle or your spin axis and how to make yourself more efficient as a pitcher or more effective as a pitcher. On the hitting side of things, it provides just as good in-depth data. It provides batted ball velocity. It also does the 3D ball flight modeling. It does the launch angle and launch direction, and it can kind of distill a lot of this down into here's how your weighted slugging percentage would work with the way that you just went through that BP. So again, it uses these data points to not just say something about how you did this day, but how that projects out and can play at the high school level and use to continue to develop your game, and then also again at the college level certainly as well. One tactical and logistical note on this before we move off of Rapsodo. You all got a pre-camp email in the last couple days that mentions we are creating Rapsodo accounts for you guys so that we can upload this data and collect this data while we're on site at camp. Please go into your email and take a look for those Rapsodo pitching and hitting emails. Every email has to be a unique one. So for example, if one went to a student athlete's email for the pitching, please click into that email and just click confirm. And then also for the hitting, it will go to the primary email that we have on your guys' account. Go into that and click that, and please confirm both accounts before we arrive at camp so that we can make sure that we're all set to collect that data on June 29th. Now we're gonna transition over to the live Q&A and really dedicate as much time to answer as many questions as possible. So to send a question, all you have to do is find in the GoToWebinar toolbar, there should be a little questions tab. If you type your question there, send it over, and Corey and I will respond to it right now. If we don't have a chance to address all the questions, then we will certainly be following up either over chat right now, and we can address it privately, or we will be following up in the next couple of days just to make sure that there are no outstanding questions before we get ready. Also, if something doesn't occur to you until later, or you're re-listening to this webinar 2 days from now and another question comes up, certainly not your only or last opportunity to have your questions answered before we see you on June 29th. You can learn a bit more about some of these showcase details at the URL you see on your screen. You can always find out more about this particular session at that URL. We are also always available by email or by phone, so feel free to ping us at any time as your questions come up. Corey, first question that I'm going to pass along to you, and I think you know what it's going to be because it's one that comes up. It's a great question, comes up on every pre-camp webinar that we run. These are some robust days of baseball with a lot of activity. How are players staying fueled for this? What's the food and water situation look like for these student athletes on June 29th and 30th?
Great question, Max. I will address the hydration piece of it first, namely because I think it is the most important piece. So there will be water in every dugout on the auxiliary field that I mentioned that we'll be using. Basically at any opportunity that a player might need to be hydrated, we will have water there for them. but we will only have water. There will not be Gatorade or other drinks. So if you as a player prefer to have something else, by all means, you are encouraged to pack a cooler, bring something with you. You will have ample opportunities to access that throughout the day. But there will be water available at all times of day while you are on site. As for the food situation, there will not be any food for purchase or drinks for that matter for purchase on Oglethorpe's campus. Aside from maybe a vending machine that you might find in some school building, there will not be a concession stand that's open or something along those lines. What we do to try and help folks out who might not be from the area is that we give you a program upon entering camp in the morning. And in that program, we include some local information, some spots that are just a mile or less away from campus that you can just pop over to, get some drinks, get some food for your ball player, for yourself. We will have opportunities throughout the day. I alluded to it a little bit when I was going over our day one schedule there of when, that there's going to be an opportunity to eat lunch. This is going to be very clearly communicated to you on site, but everyone will have that opportunity. And there are plenty of places that are not too far away that you'll be able to run out and get something in, about a 5 to 10 minute round trip.
And just to double down on the hydration point, I think we all know that it can get pretty warm, pretty muggy, pretty humid in Atlanta in the summer. It has a reputation for that. So I think that hydrating, not just when you get to camp, but also in the days leading up to camp is absolutely crucial, certainly for safety, but also just to make sure that student athletes are really prepared to perform at their absolute best during those 2 days. Hydration doesn't start at 7 a.m. when you arrive at Oglethorpe. It starts on, June 25th. Making sure you're getting enough water in those days leading up to camp, just to make sure that you're pre-hydrated so that you don't get dehydrated. Corey, another question that I'm going to turn to you before probably tapping in on as well is there's some really interesting pieces to this programming. How do I, as a student athlete, really make sure that I am able to capitalize on these and stand out to college coaches over the course of these 2 days?
Yeah, a really good question, Max, and I know you'll provide a great perspective here as well. But I think, something that should go without saying, but sometimes can get lost in a showcase environment, which is a little bit more of a high pressure situation, right? You've got, in our case, we're going to have 20 college coaches from the area who are all sitting on the field from some pretty amazing programs, probably some schools that fall into the dream school category for many of our participants. And that can cause us to sort of lose who we are as ball players a little bit. There's going to be a lot of talented players out there, and certainly being able to throw hard or throw the ball where you want to or hit the ball far, those things are all going to make you stand out as a player. But there's going to be a lot of guys out there who can do that. So what coaches will tell you, you'll hear this from them when we do our panels at the end of the day. I can promise you that. And I think something that can't be reiterated enough, and it's something that you will have heard for a long time, and from your parents, from your coaches that have coached you since day one. It's really just be yourself, be who you are as a ball player. And to expand on that a little bit, what you need to make sure that you're doing while you're out there, in addition to, of course, trying to perform at your absolute best on the field, you need to make sure that you're hitting on those off the field, those intangible pieces, because I am telling you, and I'm not just saying this to say this, the coaches are watching that just as much as they're watching your production on the field. If they're seeing a guy who is hustling in and out of the dugout between every single inning, they are going to take note of that. Max and I stand there at camp right next to college coaches, and they tell us that, and they say, wow, look at number 27, McKenna, hustling his butt off the field. That's really cool. That's the kind of guy who's going to fit into my program. They take notice of this stuff. They also take notice of you being a great teammate, making sure that you're encouraging the other guys on your team. This is a team that will be made, 24 hours before you ever play on it, right? This is not your travel team. This is not your high school team. You're not going to know most of these guys who you're playing with. So if you're able to be a great teammate in that situation, chances are that when you're in a college program and you're playing, eating, living with those guys in the program, you're going to be a great teammate in that scenario as well. And just, a couple other things to mention here too, Max, before you jump back in. Doing some little things that, you might be accustomed to doing during a game, but might not think about in a showcase scenario like this. One comes to mind. Hey, if there's a foul ball, go get it. Go get it. We're not in the pros here, right? In your high school games, you're chasing those things down, out of play or down the right field line, down the left field line. Those are things that can make you sort of stand out as a player when other players might be trying to act, too cool to do that in the showcase scenario. Again, that's something that from our experience, these coaches are really going to take note of.
Absolutely. I think that it really can't be overstated how much those quote unquote intangibles really are tangible to these coaches who are looking to recruit not just the best players that they can for their program, but also the right types of character and the right types of kids that are going to really contribute and add to and grow the culture of the programs that they are dedicating their professional lives to, right? I mean, they're spending a lot of time with student athletes over their 4 years in school, and they want them to be the right types of kids who are going to represent their program on campus, off campus, and also that they're going to want to spend time with. So I think that those intangibles, hustling, controlling the controllables, bringing energy, being an energy giver, and really helping pick up your teammates really can't be overstated. And I think that the other thing is, have fun. I think that these types of showcases can be a pretty tension-filled atmosphere, right? You're tying your shoes, and all of a sudden you realize that Coach Starbuck from Clemson might be a loop, swoop, and pull guy, and you're tying with bunny ears, and you're like, oh man, did I just get, what does that mean? Is he taking notes on me on how I tie my shoes? But have fun with this. You're all out there. These coaches are all out there because one thing that you have in common is baseball, and you're trying to continue this game that you love at the college level. Have fun during this process. That translates not just into these intangibles that coaches take note of, but also ultimately translates into better play on the field as well. If you're able to play loose and really just cut it loose and give it your best shot because you're having fun, that will really help you stand out to these coaches on the field as well. Corey, I think one last question dealing with the logistics and tackle of the two-day camp. We talked about day one arrival. What is the day one end of day and then the day two kind of hours? What are the hours that we're generally looking at for arrival and departure on this Saturday and Sunday?
Yeah, so we're looking at getting out of Hermann Stadium and off of Oglethorpe's campus on Saturday by the 4 p.m. hour. We anticipate sometime during that 3 p.m. hour, between 3 and 4, finishing up that camp programming. The reason why it's a little bit fuzzy is that, as I mentioned earlier, we end that Saturday, that day one, with some really unique opportunities there for players to interact with coaches. Sometimes that's really rolling, both from a player perspective and a coach perspective, and we hate to shut that down. Now, at some point, we will have to shut it down because we'll have to get the coaches out of there. They'll have some other things to do and to prepare for before Sunday's second day of camp. But again, we expect that first day of camp to end between 3 and 4. Now, for the arrival for day two, that depends on what team you're going to be placed on. As I mentioned before, we have these balanced teams, and we wait to make those teams until we see every player who checks in. That way we can confirm their attendance and make sure we know exactly how many shortstops, how many outfielders, how many catchers, etc. we have in camp. From there, we'll go ahead and put those players onto teams, and that's what's going to set up our schedule for day two. So each player will have the opportunity to play in one game, and those games will be sequential. So it really just depends on what team you're placed on. That team will be communicated to you before you leave camp on Saturday. So that information will be posted to our mobile site You will hear a lot more about this mobile site once you get to Oglethorpe's campus on Saturday the 29th. We will make sure that you know how to get to that website. We will mention it to you several times throughout the day. And on that mobile site will be your team assignment. And depending on what team you're assigned to, you'll know when your game slot is as well. And on that day too, that is it for the programming. Each player will take place in that high energy infield, outfield, that showcase IO, as we like to refer to it, as well as one game. Once you're done with that, you are more than welcome to leave. You're also welcome to stay and watch some good baseball, have an opportunity to interact with some more coaches, but there is no more camp programming that is going to be keeping you there.
Absolutely. Just to double down on the mobile site, we will handle any sort of schedule adjustments or anything over the course of camp, including those team assignments, as Corey mentioned, on that mobile site. And what we'll actually do is the day before camp, the day or two before camp, in the 48 hours to 24 hours before camp, we'll send out an email, much like the one you got the other day with some of that pre-camp information, including the link to attend this webinar, for example. And that email right before camp will have a link to the mobile site. So we'll be providing it. It will be posted everywhere. We'll be talking about it. But if you ever have any doubt as well, you'll be able to go back to that email and just click on that link to make sure that you have access to all those various updates and schedules and everything as we post them. That wraps up our Q&A, and I want to make sure that we respect everybody's time. Again, if anything comes up before camp starts, please reach out, and we are more than happy to answer any other follow-up questions that come up. Or if something comes up on site, certainly feel free to grab Corey, myself, or one of our other quote-unquote blue shirts to make sure that you have all your questions answered. On behalf of everybody here at Top 96, thank you so much for taking the time this evening. I'm really excited to hit the ground in Oglethorpe in just a couple weeks.